Welcome to Embracing Racial and Gender Diversity Allyship Training. My name is Dr. Christy Nitrauer, and I'll be leading our training today. My collaborators at the University of Albany and I developed this training together to help make diversity and inclusion related concepts more accessible for people who would like to be effective allies for individuals who are underrepresented. Let's get started. Today we will explore what diversity and representation looks like in the US and the connection between diversity and discrimination. So first, let's think about what it actually means to have an identity that's diverse or underrepresented. So what did you think about this video? Take a minute and really think. Did it introduce you to identities that you hadn't thought about before or didn't think were necessarily diverse? This video introduces us to diversity more broadly. Each person in this video shared their personal story regarding what diversity means to them. Overall, this video exposes us to a quick look at what the breadth of diversity can look like across the US. As we just saw, there are many diverse identities that are underrepresented, and many of us likely share a few of these. As you can see in the identity wheel here, there are a variety of demographic and more experience or context-dependent identities. but these really affect most of us. And what we know is that these identities affect our perceptions about our own self-image, worldview, values, beliefs, expectations, interactions, and opportunities. So why do these identities affect the workplace? Well, we talk about identities as being surface level indicators of diversity or deep level indicators. Even if we talk about something like demographics, we know that these characteristics can be proxies for deep and meaningful differences in life experiences. This automatically affects the lens through which we see the world and the perspective we bring into our work in terms of problem solving and creativity. There are some benefits of a diverse workforce: better decision quality, creativity, innovation, and performance, as well as organizational level outcomes like higher sales revenue and relative market share or profitability. However, if inappropriately managed, a diverse workforce can lead to some negative side effects like increased conflict, reduced communication, and potentially discrimination. This has large negative interpersonal effects on the targets of this treatment as well as the others who witness it, and can lead to larger, more downstream negative consequences as well.
Get them fake nails out of me. Get back in the class, son. Hey! Hey, come on,
Hey! Enough! Hey, Sean Mitchell, my office now. I'm not playing with your son.
I ain't no son.
Mr. Sauce, what the hell was that? That boy's your student.
Not anymore.
Hey, you walk away, you stay away.
You can have the little bastards.
I can start right now.
You're lucky you got detention and not an assault charge.
Hello, I'm Ron Clark. I wanted to let you know I taught 5th grade for 4 years in North Carolina. You need a teacher, I need a job, so let's help each other out.
Mr. Clark, I'm sure you're very sincere, but I'm afraid you might be a little too...
Too what? Too white, too tall, too ugly?
nice.
I specialize in raising standardized test scores.
This is the honors class. These students score in the top 10 percentile of the state exams every year. We divide each grade into 4 classes according to their achievement scores.
What about this class?
This class tested at the bottom of the entire New York City school district.
They do seem a little bit squirrely.
Oh, they're a bit more than squirrely. These students have problems with learning, discipline, social skills, like Tayshaun Mitchell. 2 strikes going on 3 toward the juvenile detention center.
I'm your man.
I have an opening in grade 3. If your credentials check
You
out...
have an opening right here.
No. Last year, this class went through 6 different teachers before Christmas.
Yes, nobody wants them and I do, so what's the problem?
Test scores are very important to me. It's how I keep my job.
I can start right now.
So this video depicted a scene from the Ron Clark story. It depicts a person's diversity-related self-efficacy, which is a belief one has in his or her ability to enforce changes in behavior which propagate diversity initiatives. This scene demonstrates how Ron Clark, a confident and highly ambitious teacher, takes on the challenge of coaching one of the toughest classes in inner-city Harlem, New York. We observe how diversity in this case in terms of teachers plays a role in shaping the school environment. Now, what is intersectionality? If you think about an intersection on a highway, this is the correct analogy. It's when a person has 2 or more underrepresented identities, and you can think about how the interaction between all of these identities could idiosyncratically affect that individual's experience. Yet visible identities tend to be the ones that are the most salient, and our legislation policies originally focused first on ethnicity or race and then gender. So what does ethnic diversity look like now in the US? Extrapolating from now until 2045, our population is going to become less white at just under 50%, a quarter Hispanic, 13% Black, and about 8% Asian. You can see how the underrepresented group will be approximately the same size as the majority or the white group. If you look at these statistics From an immigration perspective, you can see how our population will gradually become more and more foreign-born over time, evolving from 42% of immigrants in 2014 to 78% of immigrant population in 2060. And looking at gender, we know that statistically women make up almost half of the US workforce, approximately 47%. However, we also know that 70% of mothers remain in the workforce today, a huge jump from even 40 or 50 years ago. So thinking about how to accommodate women with diverse identities is equally as important, since they also make up a large proportion of our population. Next, we will observe how gender stereotypes can affect our perception of how qualified a woman is for a leadership position.
I should say thank you for inviting me into your lovely home.
My pleasure.
Let's get right to it. The Reston campaign says that you lack the experience to be president of the United States. What's your response to that? Congresswoman Marcus?
There's something my grandmother used to do whenever I'd start dating someone. I would tell her his name, and then she would say, "Oh, what part of town does he live in?" That was her way of asking if my boyfriend was white. Oh yeah, my grandmother was an out-and-out racist. So I know what prejudice looks like. It's not about experience, James. It's about gender. Reston's saying I don't have the balls to be president, and he means that literally. It's offensive. It's offensive to me and to all the women whose votes he's asking for.
I'm sorry, are you saying that Governor Reston is sexist?
Yes, I am.
What the hell is she doing?
And it's not just Governor Reston speaking in code about gender. It's everyone, yourself included.
Excuse me?
The only reason we're doing this interview in my house is because you requested it. This was your idea, and yet here you are, thanking me for inviting you into my lovely home. That's what you say to the neighbor lady who baked you chocolate chip cookies. This pitcher of iced tea isn't even mine. It's what your producers set here. Why? Same reason you called me a real-life Cinderella story. It reminds people that I'm a woman without using the word. For you, it's an angle. I get that. And I'm sure you think it's innocuous, but guess what? It's not.
Congresswoman Marcus.
Don't interrupt me when I'm speaking.
I have to stop this. Don't you
You're
dare.
promoting stereotypes, James. You're advancing this idea that women are weaker than men. You're playing right into the hands of Reston and into the hands of every other imbecile who thinks a woman isn't fit to be commander-in-chief. Yes, Governor, I'm talking about you. 7 years I served in the United States Army, which is 7 more years than Governor Reston ever served. A fact you conveniently omitted from my intro. How about soldier, lieutenant?
Yeah, that was an oversight. I'm sorry.
Football.
So this video showed a scene from the popular TV show Scandal. The purpose of this video is to create awareness of biases and privileges. In this scene, a congresswoman is shown being interviewed by someone who has gender-related stereotypes. The congresswoman demonstrates how creating awareness of other people's gender-related stereotypes can disrupt expressions of prejudice and discrimination. And as we've previously discussed, intersectionality can magnify these experiences of discrimination. For example, women make on average 79 cents, or some statistics today say 81 cents to every dollar that a man makes. But Black men make 74 cents to every dollar that a white man makes. And the problem is compounded for Black women who make on average 64 cents to every dollar that white men make. Now, I'd like you to take a minute to engage in a quick exercise. Either using the notes feature on your phone, for example, or a piece of paper or a Word doc on your computer, rate President Donald Trump on the following characteristics. So, for example, would you describe him as serious, merry, or depends on the situation? Write down what you think best describes him and do that for every line or set of characteristics. Pause this video until you have finished doing that. Are you done? Great. Now, using the same list of traits, write down a different list for yourself that describe you. Again, for example, would you describe yourself as serious, merry, or depends on the situation? Again, pause this video until you have completed the list. Have you finished both lists? Now take a look at them. What seemingly always happens is that people give more external attributions to themselves. So for ourselves, we put more depends on the situation. And for others, for example, President Trump, we give them more internal attributions. So we say, oh, these characteristics are innate to the way the person is. They're unchangeable. While for me, oh, well, I'm a more nuanced individual, so it depends on the situation. Do you see how we automatically and somewhat unconsciously give ourselves more benefit of the doubt than the average person? This is a bias that we have, and it is often called the fundamental attribution error or the actor-observer bias. Generally, what these two terms mean is that we attribute our personal behavior to external causes and others' behavior to internal causes, something that is about them inherently. Now, there's a little bit of nuance between the two terms if we're thinking about psychological nomenclature specifically, but for our purposes, it's fine to think about them like this. So essentially, we remember less positive information about outgroups, and this is our bias for homogeneous group members who are like us and against heterogeneous group members who are unlike us. This bias causes us to perceive single members who are representative of a particular outgroup negatively. So why do these negative attitudes lead to negative behaviors, in particular discrimination? Well, if we have less experience interacting with outgroup members, then when we encounter one, we're going to have anxiety and discomfort in the interaction that is less pleasant than being more familiar and comfortable interacting with someone. It doesn't mean that the interaction is bad. It just means that we prefer what we know and are familiar with. This leads us to keep our informal social circles homogeneous, causes us to maintain the status quo, and leads us to perceive an economic or status threat when we have to mix with heterogeneous others. Let's explore this next clip when the assumptions that students make here about their classmates are upended.
Now I'm going to ask you a more serious question. Stand on the line if you've lost a friend to gang violence. Stay on the line if you've lost more than one friend. 3. 4 or more. 'Okay, I'd like us to pay respect to those people now. Wherever you are, just speak their name.
So what did you learn from this clip? Do you think the students learned valuable new information from each other? This video showed a scene from the movie Freedom Riders. Discrimination occurs when people are anxious and uncertain about their interactions. In the video you just saw, Hilary Swank creates diversity knowledge in her class by explaining and demonstrating the commonalities between people within the class. This classroom scene highlighted the importance of creating awareness of our similarities and differences in the significance of functioning with unity in a diverse context. So we may not and probably do not think of ourselves as racist or sexist, but our unconscious stereotypes and prejudice drive these biases. And this is based on what we think is comfortable, likable, and safe. This confirms beliefs we already have and can discount new things or identities. This can ultimately also manifest in discrimination.
My name is Canwin, and I play both the piano and the violin. I aspire to someday be a doctor, and my favorite subject is calculus. My mom and dad are tiger parents who won't let me go to sleepovers, but they make up for it by serving my favorite meal every single day: rice. And I'm a really bad driver. So my question for you now is, how long did it take you to figure out I was joking? As you've probably guessed, today I'm going to talk about race, and I'll start off by sharing with you my story of growing up Asian American. I moved to the United States when I was 2 years old, so almost my entire life has been a blend of two cultures. I eat pasta with chopsticks, am addicted to orange chicken, and my childhood hero was Yao Ming. But having grown up in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Idaho, all states with incredibly little racial diversity, it was difficult to reconcile my so-called exotic Chinese heritage with my mainstream American self. Used to being the only Asian in the room, I was self-conscious that the first thing people noticed about me was that I wasn't white. And as a child, I quickly began to realize that I had two options in front of me: conform to the stereotype that was expected of me, or conform to the whiteness that surrounded me. There was no in between.
So what did you think? Did you know she was trying to prime you to think of stereotypes when she started talking? So research shows us in the impact of unconscious attitudes like the ones described here in the workplace. For example, we know that resumes with traditional Black names are less likely to receive callbacks than resumes with traditional white names, when that is the only component that changes between two otherwise identical resumes. We know that white interviewers express more avoidant behavior toward Black applicants, such as turning away and limiting eye contact, which can create a self-fulfilling negative prophecy in an interview setting. Finally, we also know that in the workplace, women are more likely to be referred to in diminutive terms such as sweetie or honey, which are benevolently sexist or condescending terms that may seem nice on the surface but can undermine women's competency and knowledge. The picture becomes bleaker if we consider more egregious and actually directly harmful behavior. Women who are underrepresented are more likely to experience racial, ethnic, and sexual harassment as compared to white women. Further, both Black and white participants across 40+ studies have been found that it is more likely that participants will shoot a Black as compared to white target, even when the Black targets are unarmed. As you can see, this discrimination can come in many different forms, more subtly or more overt or against the law, and even the subtle behaviors can be just as egregious, even if not more so than the overt behaviors. So what can we do about this as allies who seek ways to make a positive difference for our colleagues who are underrepresented? We can recognize that change has to start at an individual level, and we need to be made aware of our unconscious biases and the arenas in which they operate. Second, we need to understand that this awareness and acting preemptively can allow us to override our cognitive heuristics and biases and actually not act in a biased way when taking evaluative actions toward others. Think about this final video and how the main character's assumptions are overridden and how she immediately changes her views when she realizes she used her stereotypes to draw a certain conclusion.
Over here you have a desk, chest of drawers, you have a nightstand, a light, an alarm. Oh, and Sean says all the pro athletes use futons if they can't find a bed big enough, so I got you one of those. Of course, the frame was heinous. It's not about to let that in my house, but I got you something nicer.
It's mine?
Yes, sir. What?
Never had one before.
What, a room to yourself?
A bed.
Well, you have one now.
As you can see, this video depicts a scene from the movie The Blind Side. This video illustrates the effectiveness of empathy and sensitivity, even in the face of our own stereotypes. In this scene, Sandra Bullock, as Mrs. Tui, shows empathy toward Michael Orr, a homeless and very disturbed football player. In the video, Miss Tui can be seen showing compassion toward Michael and providing shelter. This woman's gestures illustrate quintessential components of empathy, which are psychological safety and trust, and allows her to override her initial assumptions or stereotypes about Michael. This concludes the Embracing Racial and Gender Diversity Allyship training. Please complete the questions that follow this video as they provide us with valuable feedback about was and was not effective. Thank you for your time.